would like to call to order the regular meeting of the NFP board for Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. This meeting is being conducted electronically pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, MCL 15.263-2 and MCL 15.263A1B. So Jamie, can you please do a roll call and everyone remember to announce from where you are calling in from?
Yes, no problem. We will start with Colwick.
Present from Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Fuller.
Here in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Glasser.
He's on mute, but I hear that he's here. Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, here from Kalamazoo. Thank you.
McNellis. Martin. And Sylvester.
Present in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Thank you.
Great. Is there a motion to excuse absent members today?
Yes, so
I'll
moved.
move. I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, moved by Sylvester and seconded by Fuller, I think that was. Okay. And
I would make a motion too, but I didn't hear my name called.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I don't know if I can technically.
I thought I missed it.
I'm going to go back, Director Leto for attendance.
Okay,
Where
present Kalamazoo.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, and then a motion to excuse absent members. We had, do we have to redo that?
Nope, you're fine. I have that motion by Sylvester, support by Fuller, so you can go for the voice vote.
Okay, and then all in favor say yes.
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 Great. Any opposed? Great. The motion passes. Absent members are excused. Next up is the adoption of today's formal agenda. Are there any changes the directors would like to see? And seeing none, is there a motion to adopt today's agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Sylvester and support.
Support.
Okay, by Leto. All in favor say yes.
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 Great. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Now on to item D, approval of the meeting minutes from August 24th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Sylvester, and a second
Second.
by Fuller. Thank you. All in favor say yes.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes. The meeting previous minutes are approved. And now we'll move on to item E. We will take general comments from the citizens. Don, do we have any comments at this time?
No comments at this time.
Great, thank you. And now item F, board comments. Do we have any comments from the directors? Okay, great. Now we'll move into new business. We have one item of new business to discuss today. After the discussion, there will be no action today. So Jamie, do you have a presentation for us?
We have the development team here to give us a presentation, and I'll start out by introducing, we have Tim Stewart with us today. It also looks like we probably have several other folks from the development team. So I'll let one of you all step up, and if you want to introduce the project, and you should be able to share your screen and tell us about what you're looking at doing at the property.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. This is Todd McDonald. I think we spoke on the phone once or twice. So
excellent.
Thank you. I don't know if you guys can see me or not. Is my camera working? I'm not sure why it's not working, but it's on. So I apologize for that. Maybe came into the office, came into the office to make sure it worked. So sorry about that. I'll I might log out and log back in here in a little bit, but I want to kick this off. And so we're going to have Tim Stewart with Hurley Stewart, along with our group from Chambers, who is the architect, to help do this. And I'm with the CSM group. We're a construction management firm working with the Kalamazoo Country Club as the owner. So the information that we're going to share today is very high level. This project is very early on in concept. And so we had a preliminary meeting with the city a couple of weeks ago. And the property that we're talking about is kind of two chunks, right? The lakeside, the old Lakeside School property, as well as the country club in its current location. And on the lakeside property, we had asked the city about site plan approval required, whether for a demolition permit. At first, they told us they didn't think we needed that, and then they came back and said that we did. So we're making an adjustment with that. So we're going to talk about two things today. One is the fact that we're going to do a site plan submission in two phases. Most likely the first phase to get the demolition permit to raise or demo the buildings on the lakeside property. And then a few months down the road, we'll be back with kind of the quote unquote project site plan process. But today we're going to talk about that project in a high level concept, so that at least that way, when you get the site plan for the demolition next month, you'll at least have a sense of concept, and just kind of interested in your guys' thoughts on what we're going to share. So at that, I will turn it over to Tim.
All right. Thanks, Todd. Jamie, can you hear me okay? All right. Good deal.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So like Todd mentioned, I'm Tim Stewart with Hurley and Stewart Engineers here in Kalamazoo. And we want to really introduce the Kalamazoo Country Club project to you. Like Todd said, this is a high level. We're still very early in the development and design process. And so the goals today really are to introduce the Country Club project to you. We want to explain a little bit more detail about how this project is going to proceed with the two site plan approvals and the timing for that. And the first site plan approval will be for the demo package. And then the second would be for the Country Club improvements themselves. So we'll talk a little bit more detail about that. And then the third is, since this property, all of the Country Club property is in the NFP overlay district, we want to talk to you about our approach for developing this and how we want to see if you agree with this approach. I think we have a lot of the same priorities as a city, and since this is so new, we want to have a good understanding as we move into design. So hopefully we can all be on the same page, and this can proceed very well and very responsibly. So first off, I'm going to share my screen, if that's all right. So let's see, it says host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Don, is that something you can allow Tim to do? Let me see if I have that control.
I think you have to be host, which I believe, I'm thinking that's a Neil.
Disabled, yeah, still says host. Is that something that you think we can change, or?
Doesn't look like I have the ability to do that. Neil, are you on the line with us? It looks like we have another City of Kalamazoo. Tim, if you'd like, you could email me what you want to share. I can screen share. for you. Looks like I have that ability. I don't know if that's possible if you were going to use programs on your own machine.
Well, it's just a PDF. Let me see. I've got a smaller version.
I know they can be hard to.
Yeah, there's
Email
it's a
if
lot.
they're
It's a lot of
large.
images, so I don't know that it would be very easy to email. There you go.
So it looks like I happen to have the magic participant screen sharing ability, Tim. So
Oh, wait,
Noah Schneider with CSM Group, and I clicked on it and it said I could. So I
Excellent.
guess I'll share it.
Thank
Well,
you,
good
Noah.
deal. Well, you
Sorry
get
about
to
that,
be-
everyone. Screen sharing should be enabled now for everyone.
All right, you can take it back, Tim, if you'd like.
Oh, okay, great. Let's see if I can do this here. Share, says sharing mine. Okay, can you see my screen now? Should be an aerial of the country club property.
Yep. I'm seeing that on my screen.
All right, good deal. So like I said, this is going to be a high level introduction to the project, and we want to explain our approach and hopefully get some good feedback from you. So I want to hand it off here initially to Lee Hayden with Chambers. She's going to talk a little bit more about the country club project as a whole, and like I said, give you an introduction of the direction we're headed. Lee, can you take that?
Absolutely. Thank you all. So yes, I'm Lee Hayden. I'm architect with Chambers, principal and the director of architecture. And we are really excited about this project. We think it's a really great project for Kalamazoo. And we see this design team really sees this as a 100-year opportunity. We really want to, the creation of this is it's a new clubhouse and a new golf performance center and a member activity center that'll have fitness, aquatics, and rackets. They'll have dining venues and such. So all of that is will be located on the lakeside parcel, and with the idea that we're going to be really creating a very sustainable project. And part of the our desire is for our client, they want to be a really good neighbor, and part of that is creating a sustainable project and also creating an exceptional experience for the members of the club. So that's kind of a broad view of what we're looking to do here. There will also be golf, looking at the overall how we can play golf with the performance center, and creating additional opportunities to really enhance that.
Okay, thanks, Lee. So as you said, this project entails both the country club property and the lakeside parcel. But our first priority is the site demolition. And that's the first site plan approval we're going to be pursuing through the city. And that'll be the first that'll be coming to your board for presentation and hopefully approval. So I wanted to give you, we have that further down the road in terms of development and an understanding of what's going to happen. So I wanted to focus on that lakeside piece, since that again is our first priority for this overall project. So I'm going to flip my screen here. So now hopefully you can see we've recently surveyed the lakeside school property. This is a survey of that, there's what, I think it's 49, 55, something like that acres. If you orient yourself here, north is up, along the left-hand side here is Oakland Drive. And this is, again, a topographic survey of what's out there right now. So these rectangles are all the school and gym and outbuildings for the Lakeside School. You can see the gray represents parking lots and drives. White's Lake is along the right-hand side. Hopefully you can see on your screen, there's some green lines of different thickness, and those represent the contours, the grade lines out there on the property. And then you can also see there's a fair amount of trees. And so again, this first phase of our project will be the demolition of the lakeside improvements so that we can really prepare for what's going to be coming down the road. So I'm going to flip screen here. So this is essentially that same drawing, but now it's hatched to represent what's being removed. And here I want to, so this is our still preliminary, but this is our demolition plan of the Lakeside School here. So I wanted to bring in Noah Schneider from CSM. Noah is project manager with CSM and is going to talk more specifically about what will happen here with demolition of these previous improvements and kind of the timing of that.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So right now we are working with several demolition contractors and abatement contractors to obtain the pricing and scope for the removal of all of the structures on the property. We are looking at it and doing a two-phased within the demolition plan, a two-phased removal. One would be everything to the right of that screen. Everything, if you can see the topographic lines, we call it kind of up the hill. That area all comes out in the first phase. And then including that, circular type shape in the bottom corner, that one as well is coming out. We want to retain some of the parking lot and buildings that are useful during construction. And then eventually those will go away as well. We have identified and done our due diligence from a hazardous materials assessment standpoint, and are working to complete the demolition and abatement in accordance to the requirements for removal of those components. And we are also seeking information and feedback from the demolition contractors as to their processes for disposal in alignment with sustainable requirements and guidelines. So we'll be doing this as sustainable as possible through the removal of these buildings. So initially, we will not be impacting anything that's not a man-made structure out there. If we want to take anything that's a new construction, a improvement to the space, as you may say, in terms of boardwalk, walking paths, all that we want to take out of the site, not impacting any of the existing features as this board is interested in, not impacting the trees or the slopings, things like that. We want to just remove back to bare ground structure. And our intent is to get a obtain a demolition permit through the city's processes within about a month, and start that process here yet this fall to prepare ourselves for the future development to come next year.
Great, thanks, Noah. So like Noah said, this is really to be removed really in its entirety, but we want to pursue that here this fall. So our plan is to come back to you at your next meeting at the end of October with a more detailed plan. We're working on the site plan approval, or excuse me, site plan submittal, and the application for your board's formal review of this here this next month. So as part of that review, and obviously why we're all here, one of the main reasons is to look at the natural features of this particular parcel. And we've taken a preliminary look at that. We have the survey, we've identified trees and woodlands and lakes and wetlands and all those types of things. And so I want to share this with you. Again, this is preliminary. We're still working on this, but Lori Davis is a landscape architect here at Hurley and Stewart. And she's spent a lot of time working on this inventory and continues to do that. So I was hoping that Lori could maybe walk us through the lakeside property and the natural features that we've identified up to this point.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, you're a little soft.
Okay, I'll speak up. All right, so in taking a look at this site, we determined first and foremost where our slopes were. I think that's probably going to be our biggest challenge on this site. So you'll see in the dark red and the dark blue are the areas on the property where we are exceeding 20% slope. And then you'll see the red and blue hatching, which is the offset from that at the top of the slopes and the bottom of the slopes. In most cases, it's 10 foot. Towards White Lake, there's a little bit more of an offset because we're going above a 20-foot grade change. And you can see up in that upper right corner, I think that's the only area that we needed to go above the 10-foot setback. And we have two different colors because we've differentiated between native slopes and man-made slopes. We hope to take a look at the site as far as what was here originally and stuff that was developed with the lakeside property. It just helps us in our process to differentiate between the two. And then in the two different color greens are over woodland areas. So the old growth woodlands are in the dark patch, which you'll see to the right towards Woods Lake, and kind of the bright green is secondary growth. So it's a lot more smaller trees that have grown up since we found a 1955 aerial of the site, which didn't have trees in those areas. So those have all come up since 1955. And then in addition, you'll see the thinner 25-foot setback from the water features, both Woods Lake and the wetland. Currently, we have not had the wetlands delineated. That's one of the reasons why this is still preliminary, because we still plan on having someone go out there and kind of define that edge a little bit better than what it currently is. And then the thicker blue line represents that 500-foot buffer from those water features. So we'll have to take a look at that when we're determining what's protected, because anything within that 500 feet, if it's a slope or a woodland, those are the areas that will be protected. I think that's about it.
Okay, so just to zoom in a little bit more, so what you're saying, Lori, is along, but in terms of slopes, the red represents man-made slopes greater than 20%, and the dark purple here, that represents naturally occurring slopes greater than 20%.
Yes.
Gotcha. And then this this green represents old growth woodlands, and this yellow represents secondary growth woodlands greater than ½ an acre.
Yes.
Okay, and then here is the wetland boundary and the lake boundary, and then here's that 500-foot setback, which is identified in your ordinance. So again, this is a preliminary look at that. We're also going through and identifying trees, individual trees, and we haven't completed that. That will be added to this. But this sheet, further developed, will be part of the review set that you'll be getting at your next meeting. So one thing that I wanted to, I guess, touch on when it comes to developing this property, and again, we're looking for your to get an understanding of where the city and the ordinance and this board is coming from as we look to develop this and hopefully balance these natural features with what we want to do out here. Is we really similar to the ordinance are very sensitive to the development of this, and we're not looking to make a wholesale change to this property. We're looking to strategically, with precision, develop this and preserve and protect the natural features as much as possible. But really our approach that I want to get into here is to take more of a comprehensive look of the property rather than protect the natural features that may have been built for the school. Like Lee touched on, we want to look at the history of this property, and we want to listen to the property and really how it was originally developed or not developed, but established, years and years ago, and be conscientious to that as opposed to how it was developed more recently for the Lakeside School. So what I wanted to get into next is we have an excellent design partner, Mahan Reichel, out of Baltimore, who are a landscape architecture firm, and they've done an evaluation. So I asked Matt or Scott from Mahan Reichel to go through and kind of tell us the evaluation that they've done of the property. We can't hear you guys.
How about now? Can you guys hear us okay?
Yep, sure can.
Well, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here. We had spent a lot of time in Kalamazoo a few weeks ago walking the site with the design team. And if you've been to the Lakeside Academy and kind of the edge of White's Lake, it's a very disorienting environment once you kind of leave Oakland Drive and come down into the site. You kind of lose yourself and kind of lose perspective on what's happening with the overall development parcel. So what our team had done is we really peeled back the layers of the site to start to tell the story of the land and what's happening currently. And what it's telling us is that there's basically four main components of the site. The first is noted as letter A. That's a high point ridge that runs along Oakland Drive on the western side of the site. The second is area B, which is where a lot of the school buildings and parking lot had been placed. You'll notice that area is the darker green. That's a low point of the site. So a lot of things happened there that probably weren't the greatest to place a lot of development kind of in the low areas that where water was starting to try to flow back into White's Lake. That also kind of separated the site, so to speak, and kind of created a barrier between the two high points. So the third point is area C, which is the existing hilltop development with the remaining portion of the school. That's the area that's kind of at the highest point of the site associated with the lake. And then the fourth component is the letter D, which is the White's Lake edge and the wetland area as well, that kind of wraps the edge of the lake around to the wetland area to the kind of southeast of the site. So in very simplistic forms, these are kind of the four main zones that we were looking at for the site. We have two ridgetop areas and then two low areas. So what you'll see is that building upon what Tim's group has been identifying as the natural features and some of the constraints, we've been working with the plan with these four main components to start to tell a story for not only what the land is telling us, but also what the vision for the Kalamazoo Country Club could be in response to these conditions as well. So Tim, you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
And this is very preliminary. So all of this is very much a work in progress. As Tim and Laurie had mentioned, that they're still working through the mapping of the environmental features. The architecture team is still developing program for the buildings, and our team is still working through, the analysis and the program of the site itself. So this is very much a watercolor, so to speak, where the lines are still being blurred and put back together. But this is currently the approach for the site, and some of the things that you're going to see just quickly is underlaid below in the areas. You can see the constraints that Tim's group had mapped. So we've been carefully stitching the development program into the main stitching the development program into the site to avoid constraints where we can. So I'm going to walk you through the site fairly quickly, just kind of from west to east, from the arrival to the clubhouse. I'll highlight some of the key things that we see potentially happening, and then we'll probably end with some questions and some other items. So working from Oakland Drive, what we're seeing is there's an existing intersection at Angling Road. We see that as the ideal location to enter the club site. So you'll see our swinging arrival drive that's working on the southern edge of the site up towards the clubhouse parcel. So that would be a new entrance at the existing light. What we then would envision is that the existing road and entrance drive to the school, which is on the northwestern side of the site, would become a service access for deliveries or other events that would be coming to the clubhouse intermittently throughout the day or throughout the week. So our main arrival would be at Angling Road. Then kind of building upon that diagram that we had shown you, there are really two main components for the project. The first is the clubhouse development parcel. So that's the parcel situated on the lake edge. So what you're seeing here is that we're trying to place the clubhouse building, which may feel like it's broken into 2 or 3 different buildings, and an associated potential parking facility that would be located below that. One of the unique things about the project is that we're doing everything we can to avoid site impacts to slopes and trees and other elements. So this parking facility, especially for a clubhouse or a country club like this, is very rare. So the development team is really making a large investment in trying to consolidate the development to the hilltop parcel that we had identified to minimize those impacts. Otherwise, the parking traditionally would be expanded 2 or 3 times outside of those footprints, those conceptual footprints shown for the building. So we're trying to sensitively place that development. Back to the west, we're identifying the remainder of the area for the executive golf course and the driving range. That's going to allow us to also kind of remove the school buildings and allow the land to kind of reconnect with the wetland area and some of the other spaces. But that allows for a nice space for a natural connection with golf, existing woodlands, and potential areas for new native landscapes, especially like a Michigan prairie landscape that's prevalent in western Michigan. And then kind of on the lake edge, kind of coming back to the development parcel, we're still working through the program for that building, understanding sizes of what needs to be located in the building, sizes for parking and other elements. So this is very much a work in progress, but what you can see is that we're trying to consolidate the development into that parcel. But even by doing some of the things that we're doing well and avoiding most of the sloped areas, a lot of the treed areas, we do understand that we will have some impacts to some of the natural features. For example, some of the sloped areas at the clubhouse development parcel, you can see the buildings are sitting on those. We also know that we want this building to interact with the lake edge, and those are one of the reasons we want to come to your group to understand kind of what the opportunities are to create those connections and do that, and then also reconnecting back to this clubhouse parcel back to the golf course, which is to the north. You can see the 11th green kind of becoming the 18th green. So having those connections again back to the primary reason for this is the 18-hole golf course on the north parcel. But very simply, again, we're starting to study the arrival from the site from Oakland Drive, situating that entry drive sensitively to preserve trees where we can, situating the golf to enhance the natural features of the site from the ridgetop that works its way from Oakland Drive to the low point of the site, and then most importantly, focusing the clubhouse development area on the existing hilltop site where the school is to locate our amenities and features there. And then from there, starting to establish potential club connections back to other portions of the property. But in a nutshell, really, our team is trying to stitch together the analysis that Tim's team is doing, the program that's coming with the club and from the architecture team, and then the design of these elements. So you can see very much kind of these elements starting to be placed sensitively on the development site as we work through each of those elements independently. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tim. I think you were just going to wrap up a little bit with the site aerial.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, so as Matt said, we're trying to be very strategic and surgical in how we're developing this property and being sensitive to these natural features. Also, that we're looking for opportunities to maybe have a net positive effect on this property and the overall country club property. We already think that there'll be, we're hoping for some reduction in impervious area. We know we're looking to, as the sketch portrays, introduce some native prairie landscapings potentially. It's still early and we haven't, we don't have those design elements determined, but those improvements, stormwater improvements, maybe even some other planting areas. So we have I think a very sensitive approach to the project. So yeah, let me go to this aerial. Is again the existing aerial. So really we wanted to, like I said earlier, engage the board and gain a better understanding of how the board would interpret a large scale development in terms of the Natural Features Protection Overlay District. So maybe we could just start with our timeline. I think, Jamie, you had pointed out to me that the next NFP board meeting is on the 26th of October. And just wanted to, I guess, verify what we would need to submit and when, so that we can definitely make that meeting.
Yeah, so I think what we need to determine between now and then is if you feel you need to seek variances for any of those slopes in the middle of the site. That'll be important because we'd ask you to go seek that variance ahead of the site plan review process.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing here so we can see each other. Yeah, I think our plan is to not pursue any variances for this demo package. We're not planning on mass grading. We're not planning on really any significant tree removals.
Okay.
So I think it's really just removing what's there now, and then we'll be looking to develop the documents for the next phase down the road, and we'll be coming back to you for that.
Sure. Yeah, and I would say any variances that you're seeking for that second phase, we should certainly hold off. Those, it wouldn't make sense to do those now, especially in this early design phase, or this sort of conceptual phase that you're in right now. You know, being the first time I've seen the demolition plan and that sort of extent of disturbance, I think staff will need to kind of take another look at that just to confirm that we're not in need of any sort of variance. So if you can try to send that off to me really as soon as you guys feel that that's finalized or pretty firm, that would be great for us to take a look at.
You mean a variance from the NFP standpoint, just to remove
that?
that?
It didn't seem like it didn't look like you were going to be impacting any protected slopes, but it's just one of those things I'd love to get staff to look at that and probably even make sure that our main project review committee, you know, the staff administrative group is looking at that as well.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll be submitting the site plan application here this next week. So there'll be an actual application for them to react to then too.
Yeah, so assuming that there's not a need for any sort of variance in this first phase, you would have to get application materials, a full application packet to us by October 18th.
Okay.
To be added onto the agenda for the 26th. We'll also want that MNFI review in that packet as well. And I think it's a good time to be able to review that now. I don't know if we'll need to have that redone for any reason. I think we probably, I don't know if Ashley, you can speak to this, but would that rare species review still be applicable for the second phase as well?
Yeah, I don't think anything would change, especially given that we're only updating those maps, I think annually or more than that. Yeah, and from that, I did review. I'm with Michigan Natural Features Inventory. It's my regular job, and I did review the occurrences for the site. And there is a rare rush that had occurred on the western edge of Weiss Lake. It's a pretty old occurrence, but that's just something to think about generally as the activities around a landscape affect both water quality and depth. That is something that it could affect. Just because it's an old record doesn't mean it's not there anymore. It just means no one has necessarily looked for it. And
Right.
also spotted turtles and box turtles in the area as well. So just kind of three different species, two different groups of species to think about as far as development. And obviously for the spotted turtle, leaving as much of that marshy area and adjacent uplands that have native vegetation on it would be good. But that's my unofficial MNFI.
Right. What is a rush? Is that a bird?
It is grasses, sedges, and rushes. Those are your three main types of monocots that you have. That
Okay.
So it's similar to a grass, but it's round and not hollow.
Gotcha.
So
Okay. Yeah, we've got that. Well, we're working on getting it ordered. I don't know if it's officially ordered yet, but it will be here now, the database search at least.
yeah, just the desktop review should be a
Right.
pretty quick turnaround. We're automating that sort of work quite a bit. So yeah.
Okay. All right, great. So I guess in general, we're looking for some feedback on our approach. And so we've identified that, like I said, we want to develop this very strategically. And Matt laid out the areas that, and Lori laid out the areas that are sensitive per the ordinance, and then the areas that are sensitive just in general, with the lake's edge and the natural area through the middle there. So are there any opinions from the board in terms of what we're proposing?
I was going to start off just by one comment, which is, as someone that drives by that place fairly often, I live about a mile down the road. I just want to point out to you that for many members of our community, they'll likely not use this property, but a place of the property that everybody experiences in our town is as you drive by that now. And it's really pleasant that as you're driving down Oakland, there's this stretch of the native vegetation, and the way the slope is, what most people do see is that native vegetation slope that's adjacent to the road. And I just, it's hard to tell for me with scale on that map how thick that line of the native vegetation along Oakland. And I have to say, I haven't walked that spot. I don't know exactly what the composition of grasses are or anything, but I do think that the curb appeal for this area, maintaining that wide buffer of native vegetation along Oakland, is something that I see that it was present in that. And I think that a lot of our members of the community would like to maintain, if not improve, that area. And I do think that as a golfer myself historically, that I think that mowing is a huge issue environmentally for these areas. So I'm really pleasantly surprised to see the patches of native vegetation in the driving range. And I don't know, how that works logistically to have as much of that as possible, but the reducing mowing and also providing that beneficial pollinator habitat is just a double whammy, as far as on the good side of a whammy. But yeah, so do we have any other comments from the board members, questions for our visitors?
I know Paul
Looks like-
does.
Yeah, Paul has his hand up.
Okay, yeah, on my speaker. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Ashley's right about that west side along Oakland Drive. About 30, I hate to say 40, but maybe even 40 years ago, the Wild Ones established tall grass prairie in there, about 8-10 acres worth. So there are some nice remnants there that I've seen of that planting still there. So this is probably more for Lori or even Matt, but yeah, I'd pay attention to that 10-15 acres along the west side just to see. I don't know what they put in there, but I can, if you want to talk to some people, I don't know how deep you want to go into that, but Tom Small and Paul Auxilia did that. They kind of put that planting together and made it happen on behalf of the Wild Ones. I don't know if you want to talk to them about what they put in there, but what is there, I think is pretty nice. I haven't looked at detail. I think they put some side oats in there, side oats gram in there, which is something to be concerned about. It's not a protected plant or anything like that, but that's, anyway, if you find it in there, it would be nice to try to preserve that. I think the way that I see, the way that you're laying everything out, the way you're explaining it, to me, I think you're on the right track. Stuff gets taken out of there that has been there, that is man-made, natural stuff is just left totally alone until you get ready to commence to begin to do your site plan and stuff. Then I'd be anxious to see what you do there. But anyway, going forward with this, I wouldn't stop you. I mean, this looks good. I got no other advice than hey, do it and let's take a look again.
Thanks, Paul.
I had a comment. I agree with Paul. I appreciate the, sort of thinking of the environmental setting in the forefront. It looks like you're doing. I appreciate that. I think just, we went through your plans pretty quickly and I was looking at them on a small screen. So I probably missed some things, but obviously you have a pretty significant water resource right there with White's Lake. And it looked like there was a bit of wetland that kind of curls around on the southwestern edge of White's Lake. And so I'm sure you're aware of it, but if you are adding a fairly intensively managed golf course near that, obviously on White's Lake, there'll be some development in between the golf course and the lake, but I just want to make sure that wetland piece gets protected from any potential runoff. And, there's some buffer requirements and setbacks and all of that, but just, we went through those plans quickly, so I didn't see specific mention of that, but just, that's something that I will certainly be looking for is setbacks and buffers from all of those wetland and the lake area as well.
That makes sense. And do you see any issue in terms of the demolition with those, since really we're just removing what's there? A lot of those issues to me will come, in the winter or spring, that we'll be addressing those more specifically.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, you'll need to have all of your erosion control in good shape and all of that. But I'm thinking more about the final phase, the actual when you're creating the golf course and it's being managed as a golf course and making sure that runoff doesn't impact the water resources there.
Gotcha.
Any other questions, Mitch?
Yeah, I had a couple of comments. First of all, I really appreciate the thoughtful approach here. And my quick impression is that the net change of buildings and hardscape might actually be less than what's there now. It's a little bit hard to tell with all the different footprints there, but I think as an overall theme, using the existing footprint as much as possible looks like you're pretty much doing that. And so I think that's a really wise approach, obviously environmentally and otherwise. And as other board members have pointed out, is kind of a de facto natural area in the city of Kalamazoo. So we have formal natural areas that are obviously parks and nature preserves and things like that. But between the lake and the wetlands that fringe it and the additional wetlands on site, Paul mentioned the prairie plantings and the sort of old and second growth woods there. And the slope, it really has a lot of features of a small natural area. So even though it's not a formal one, it kind of functions that way. So yeah, I appreciate the sensitivity to all the features that are there. You have almost almost all our natural features that we identify on the book. So not the easiest site necessarily, but looks good. I would also say that I know that you'll have a wetland delineation, and I think our minimum is 25 feet, which is actually obviously pretty small, pretty basic, but obviously greater would be better. It looks like you'll have a larger buffer than that. I've heard of different development projects taking a certain number of years, and wetland delineation lines can actually change. And I'm thinking of a lot of the recent years, the flooding in certain areas we've had in Kalamazoo, crosstown ponds and those areas. Specifically, I don't know the specific hydrology of this site. It looks like it might be spring fed. I don't see any surface flow in or out, but that the kind of prevailing theme is that we've been getting more water. So obviously from your infrastructural standpoint and an environmental standpoint, a bigger buffer is better. I liked the distinctions you made between natural and man-made slopes and old and second growth forests, because if you do have to crack some eggs or apply for a variance or something like that, sometimes those decisions about what ecological feature might have more value or has been there longer might be decisions that you have to make. I was curious, Jamie, the man-made versus natural slope, I don't know if we distinguish between the two. So that might be, I don't know if that's what you were getting to with the variance. Obviously, we kind of know inherently the natural one has more ecological value, but I think because they can be probably hard to tell apart, I wasn't sure if we actually have an allowance for that in the NFP. I didn't think we did.
So but for the proximity to White's Lake, any of those 20% and greater slopes that don't have like natural cover, thinking about woodland or something like that, wouldn't qualify as protected. The only reason that those sort of man-made slopes are qualifying is because they're within 500 feet of a water body. So I think, what I hear is maybe those are a little more gray or maybe, secondary to some of those natural slopes. And I think that the ordinance kind of is trying to get to that, but they end up kind of falling into that protected bucket only because of their proximity to water.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I like the nature trail. I think that really shows that you're using the natural areas as an asset rather than kind of an obstacle for the development. Highlighting that with a boardwalk or a nature trail, I think is a great idea and obviously benefit for members. I wanted to ask about this second entrance. That is one piece of hardscaping that does come close to the wetland and does, break up some of the natural features to some degree. Is the thought there that the traffic light is on angling to service that three-way intersection, and so that's the kind of best location rather than the existing one further north on Oakland?
It is.
Yes,
that was where
Go ahead.
that was where the team thought that was going to be the safest location to enter. As you know, coming in off of White's Road now, it's a tough access for the clubs. So I think having that light there will, it's kind of the safest and the most logical place to enter the site.
Okay, gotcha. And then, yeah, the other just small comment I have, I thought the Prairie Islands were a cool idea in the managed turf areas. Obviously, the other board members made comments about maybe looking at where the existing prairie is and working off of that, maintain that buffer. Obviously, this will be a decision for the owners and managers of the property, not necessarily the folks developing it, but prairies are essentially evolved to burn periodically. And so if the owner did have a desire to burn those off, which helps to reinvigorate them and kind of maintain them and keep the brush down, those sorts of things, the fact that they're surrounded by a green golf course gives you a really great fire buffer, or essentially fire line that is not flammable to work off of. So that seems like an easy, from my perspective, just because it's so much fun to do. That was just sort of a neat thing that I thought about. But yeah, overall, I think it looks really good, and we appreciate you coming to us first.
Excellent. Thanks, Mitch.
Yeah, Bobby.
Yeah, hi. So as a geologist, I'm going to defer to our tree people, but we do have a precedent. When we looked at another project that involved demolition of existing buildings, we did look at their tree inventory. And I know NFP has measures in there whereby, yes, I'm going to tear down this building, and my intent is not to disturb the tree that's next to it. But NFP does have some built-in features specific to preserving certain trees. So that is something that may need to be run through this board as well.
Yeah, I would add to Bobby's comment that for next month's application, if you have a tree inventory of even trees you think may, sort of be disturbed or taken down as part of construction, understanding that you're not going to be able to, tear up a building and not impact a tree around it. What we've had in the past that I think Director Glasser was mentioning is if you can have a sheet in there that just maybe has that inventory and highlights any of, or identifies any of the trees that both fall in the protected category and you think may be coming down or, might be damaged in the demolition phase, then you can kind of use that list for the phase 2 and then just kind of match up what you're going to be using to replace those trees that might be taken out. So that's, I guess, an inventory and a table with sort of your best estimate of what might come down. And then we'll use that as a reference for replacement in the second phase.
Makes a lot of sense. Lori's already working on that. So that'll definitely be in our next iteration.
And we're happy to work with you on that. Not all trees are equal as far as the conservation of these areas go. So we're happy to work with you if you have some decisions you need to make about which trees need to stay or go, and we can help inform those decisions. And
okay, good, great.
Any other board comments, questions, follow-up questions from our guests?
I think one question that I wanted to ask you folks is, and I think we've touched on it a little bit, but maybe we can dive it just a little bit deeper, is I feel pretty confident that we will need to request some variances. And so that distinction that we're trying to make between man-made and naturally occurring slopes and old growth and new growth trees and just the development, again, being as sensitive as we are and trying to look for other opportunities, whether it's a net reduction of impervious or stormwater improvements or prairie introduction and that kind of thing. How does the board feel about, do those factors play into your determination of whether or not to support a variance request?
I would say they do. I'll just jump right in. I think that we have definitely had to work with applicants who have needed variances for one reason or another. And I would say that's one of our, I guess, one of our roles is can we direct it if there are trees that have to be cut down or slopes that have to be impacted? Can we direct them to areas that are sort of already disturbed, or like Ashley mentioned, there could be invasive trees that have functionally grown up and provide some canopy cover on the site. Second growth versus old growth certainly has different ecological value. If it's buffering the natural feature, obviously it has more ecological value. So even though the NFP doesn't distinguish between some of those distinctions that you've made, I think they'll be definitely helpful for you and for us kind of making decisions down the road. So I'd say yes, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that as a board, we might be the toughest on the variances of the slope near the water for sure, and those wetlands on the southeastern end.
Sure.
So yeah, I think our board's demonstrated that we've worked with developers and we see your goals, and we want to make sure you can meet your goals and do it in the most environmentally friendly way. So
Okay, great. That's good to hear. Let's see. How about from our group? Any other questions, things that we haven't touched on yet?
want to give everybody just an extra minute, as virtually it's hard to tell who's trying to talk. So Lee, have you unmuted or do you have something to say?
Yeah, no, I think Tim and everybody covered it. We really appreciate your feedback. I just want to thank you all. And I think that you all are picking up on, it's good to hear, because we really want this to be this will be a sustainable project. And so what you're noticing is exactly what we are excited about doing, and really creating something better than what it currently is.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think Mitch made an observation about impervious or hardscape, and that there's actually an overall reduction. And so we believe that to be the case as well, and that will show more as we move through the process. So.
Great.
Again, thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks to all of you. And yeah, we appreciate this early on in the process work, and hopefully it saves you all some time too. So, well, seeing as how we have no further comments on this and there's no action on this item today, I'm just going to allow an extra moment for additional questions. And then I think our guest, as we move on to old business, may want to pop off. Correct, Jamie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks again. Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, we'll see you, at least some of you, in a couple weeks.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and Tim, feel free to reach out with deadlines, questions as you get into the application. I'm happy to answer any of those questions.
Will do, Jamie. Thank you.
Great. Have a nice evening.
You too.
All right, team. So now we are on to item H, old business. Do we have old business?
There is no old business today.
Okay, great. And then last off are there any comments or announcements for the board? Jamie had pointed out that some boards, like the City Commission, call in members individually to ask if they have any announcements. And as we get into phase 3, that's something we might want to do, but I think I'll skip that today and just open it up to see if anyone has additional comments from today. Yeah, Bobby.
I shared with Jamie, and I think the whole board, that I have a new employer, so my email has changed. And so, Jamie, I've been getting some emails from you to my new business address, but I've not been getting them from the city of Kalamazoo as far as like the invitation to this. So if there's a way to follow up on that, please.
I will check in again
No
and
worries.
have them change that email. Yep. Thank you for that
No worries.
update.
Thank you kindly. Yep.
Congratulations, Bobby.
Yay.
Great. And then, oh yeah, Paul.
Yeah, Bobby, by the way, now that you've got a new employer, I got a bitch about where you were before. You guys, there's stuff just flowing off of your parking lot down into Woods Lake, trash and everything else, and new bumper blocks along there. A car's going to drive right off.
Yeah.
Anyway, I would like to know, who do I bitch at for?
Well, I'm actually still in that same physical office. I'm just working for a different employer now, but I'm in the same space. So you can, we can talk.
All right, sorry.
Yes, sir. That's okay. Yes.
Paul, I'm glad to see someone else put their foot in their mouth today. So that's good. Yeah, so I just had one brief comment, which is we've touched on the phase, I know we just finished phase 2 and we've touched on phase 3. So I know at our last meeting, I had asked / volunteered to see if Nolan would be interested in kind of collecting comments as we have them, and you know, or if we have one volunteer or just some way to keep a running tally of items about the ordinance as they come up that we're like, we never thought about that. So for instance, I don't know if it's really an issue that we would be interested in changing, but the man-made versus natural slope is something I personally had not thought about before. And, you know, and I do think that in the case of the site today, that slope, man-made as it may be, has been there for long enough that, you know, in adjacency to a wetland. So I'm just saying that that is an example of if we have a way to keep just running list so that when we do get to actually making changes with phase 3, that we don't have to rack our brains all over again.
Right.
Yeah, Poppy.
There's a wetland precedent here whereby if I construct a drainage swale or a ditch or something, and it's there long enough such that wetland hydrology takes over that, whether it was man-made or not, it now constitutes the new normal and is therefore qualifies as a wetland. So following that same procedure, a man-made slope that's been there long enough, unless it's something like a constructed retaining wall that is that's a 1-1 slope. Now, obviously that's more of a structure than a slope, but nonetheless, once it's there long enough, it is the new normal.
Great, thank you. That's what my gut said, but
to some degree.
I'm happy to have the expert opinion. So thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, Jamie.
I wanted to add one thing, talking about Nolan. I'm not sure we've announced Nolan's AmeriCorps service term ends at the end of October, but then Nolan, I don't know if you want to announce to the board here your plans after your AmeriCorps service term.
So I'm gonna stay with the city, so you guys will see my face for the foreseeable future, and so I'm super excited about that. And to kind of steer back to the slope, you know, I think it's one of those limitations of data as well. You know, when I did the slope, I used USGS data, and that is just here, you know, that's the slope. They're not making that distinction. Now, if you wanted to get really fine grain and look at the LiDAR data, which is like, 1 meter pixels, you'd really be able to start seeing, like Bobby was saying, like where retaining walls are, and other, like, I mean, it starts to pick up structures. That's how fine grain it is. So it's almost too much. So there isn't really a nice middle ground. And I think what they did by going back and looking at some old aerials, or maybe, maybe it just ends up being a very site specific thing. Just like it was mentioned previously too, old growth versus new growth. Even if those trees weren't around in the 50s, we're at a point now in time where if they were just planted in the 60s, those are older in terms of tree growth, even though it'd be considered, it's not old growth per se. So yeah, I think that's really, those categories get a little tough, but I'll just leave my comments at that and mute myself.
Yeah, I agree. Even though some of those differences they pointed out with the man-made versus old growth, I still appreciate their attention to pay attention to the issues at all, even if, MNFI, we don't necessarily recognize the difference between old growth and second growth in the way they might, but yeah, so.
And I assume
anyways,
if they do their tree inventory, that'll come up next time, right? I mean, we'll literally be able to see like what the sizes are and just talk about it that way.
Yeah.
I think we also talked about too with slope at like various points in the NFP2 development that it's not necessarily like slope itself. Like we do have it as a natural feature, but it's not necessarily slope itself that we value as a natural feature. It's sort of like the impact of working on or adjacent to it can have. And so it seemed like we even ran into that where like woodland versus woodland with a slope, you know, some of the woodland fell out because it wasn't combined with a slope. And I think maybe vice versa too. So it's sort of like the combination of those features. So I do think that if they're going to apply for a variance, and we can tell that, you know, there's a man-made slope that was made to hold up the side of a building that's no longer going to be there, and it's on that west side away from the lake, it's like, okay, not too concerned about that. But the wooded slope, you know, between the hilltop and the lake, obviously, like that's a big concern.
Yeah, go Paul.
Yeah, I got that too. I think what we have written down as a slope is a slope is a slope, and a tree is a tree is a tree. I'd really like to stick with that because we've demonstrated, and I'm fully confident that it really is a case by case basis. That, you know, you've got a slope here, whether it's man-made or natural, then no, you have to apply for a variance, and we can take that individual case and, you know, determine. I think we can be real successful at that without trying to define man-made versus natural, old growth versus new growth.
I also agree. That's the purpose, after all, of this review committee and of the variance review process in zoning, as well as in this particular aspect of land use. So I think we should be comfortable with that too.
Yep, and it makes the writing part of it simpler on paper. So it makes it easier for applicants to understand and for us to understand, and the distinctions can come in the discussion like here. So I think that's a good way to leave it. I agree too.
Okay, with leave it a moment for any other comments.
Good first meeting, Ashley.
Thanks. I've had my support animal on my lap, unofficial support.
Your secret.
Keeps me calm. Yeah. Paul.
Yeah, I apologize to the board for coming in late. I'm down in Florida actually, and I don't apologize for that. But anyway, my cousin broke her femur, and I'm trying to get her back into her house here and stuff. So I was off seeing the doctors, and anyway, I apologize. I won't be late again.
Paul, you're retired. You don't have to make up stories that you're in Florida. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm here just to get hammered and enjoy the sun. That's why I'm here. Yeah. Okay.
Paul, I will ask, do you know about what time you tuned in?
It was about quarter after.
Okay.
They had just started talking with the okay.
Yeah. We have a great way to record that in the minutes. Beth will put that in the minutes. It's usually just way more obvious when you're in person and someone joins a room, you're taking minutes and you know when they show up. And sorry, I'd missed and didn't record when you popped into the virtual room. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
One other thing I was just going to mention, maybe to Ashley or others, I think that Tyler Bassett, the botanist for MNFI, I'm pretty sure he did an inventory for the Lakeside site. I don't know if that was formal or informal, but just putting a bug in our collective ear to already send him a text, but to bother him and see if he has any of that info to help kind of
he's in
support their
trouble if he
decisions.
didn't put it in the database, because that's what I checked today. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's probably in his pre-MNFI days, though, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like Tyler's done an inventory on about every square inch of anything around. So yeah.
Yep.
He's got it. So
His time on this board will come soon. He's prepared. So okay, well, without any further comments, I will adjourn our meeting today, and I will see you all on October 7th, 6th. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
See you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Nolan.
Yeah, Nolan.